Here is my disclaimer. The following information was obtained from historical records, eyewitness accounts, other information sources, and including my own opinion. Since I was not always there at the time to verify it, it may or may not be correct. Today we will explore some vintage drag racing behind the scenes and in the pits. I went to the drag races a month ago, and it made me think how things have changed, some for the better and some for the worse, but you be the judge. These early dragsters were just cars without the bodies. From what I read, the tech inspections were basically a tire check. As long as they were not worn or cracked, they let you run. As you can see here, safety was not a priority. This is Marcia Bennett, Linda Vaughn and Nikki Phillips, three of the most recognizable Hearst models in drag racing. I have seen many pictures over the years of people hitting the tree. It rarely happens, but it does happen. I don't know what would be worse, the damage to the tree or that sick feeling when you get out of your car and have to look at it. This XS class car sitting here after a run is Harry Canary, is owned by Rich Hammonds and Don Williamson from San Jose, California. The 1966 Plymouth Valiant was powered by a Nitro 392 Chrysler Hemi by Don Williamson with an automatic transmission. The car was at Lyons for the 1967 HRA's Winter Nationals race. His 8.79 qualified number 16 in the 32-car field. This is Wild Willie Borsch, a longtime altered and funny car fan favorite driver with a couple drag racing fans. Here's one of those oh Christ moments, when you open the door, get out and see your rear wheel laying 15 feet behind your car. This is Chevwagon, owned by Butch and Jean Morey from Clinton, Maryland. The 1962 Volkswagen Beetle was powered by an injected gas 427 Chevrolet with an automatic transmission. If you watched my video on sports car drag cars, you will know this old picture is of a Kellison kit-bodied car. I think these would make a great street strip car if you can find one today, but in reality that is highly unlikely. I know there are still a few around, but I have never actually seen one. This dragster is owned by Chris Karamessinis from Chicago, Illinois. The 1962 dragster by Don Maynard was powered by twin supercharged Nitro Chrysler Hemis with direct drive. On July 4, 1962 in Oswego, Illinois, it ran a 936 at 183 miles per hour. If you are under 40 or live under a rock and you don't know who this is, it's Pam Hardy, former backup girl for Jungle Jim Lieberman. If she did now what she was doing then, in this day of social media and promotion, she would be a celebrity today, being offered countless endorsements, TV and movie deals. She would probably have her own clothing line and reality show. I'm not much of a reality show person, but I would watch it. Today's drag racing could sure use some people to put the showmanship back in drag racing, where today they want it all politically correct. Maybe that's part of the reason they have the worst market share of any major motorsport, but that's for another video. This picture is from opening day at New England Dragway on September 11, 1966. This is Sudden Death, owned by Eddie Potter from California. It was powered by a supercharged Nitro 392 Chrysler Hemi with direct drive. There is a lot to like about this picture: the early rear-engine dragster, the tri-power setup and the flatbed hauler. Not sure of the year here, but you can tell this guy came ready to race. Here in the pits is Ed Miller's Barracuda that ran Super Stock and Pro Stock, sitting by Dave Lyle's 1970 Mustang called the Going Thing. Here's another one of those oh Christ moments, to be in a slingshot dragster when that blower comes apart. I used to have an old Schwinn 10 speed bike similar to those shown in this picture, but sadly, nobody that looked like that ever rode my bike. I saw this picture of a 1958 Chevrolet wagon parked behind the tower. I like the color and the wheels. It's called Beer Wagon. I'm sure there is a story behind the name. Old two-door station wagons are becoming very sought after. Here's another oh Christ moment, to think about the force it took to blow the crankshaft out of the engine like that. This is a good picture of the tower and tree at the Niagara Airport drag strip. It seems like everyone has different opinions of when it opened, and since I was not there, from what I read it was opened in 1961 and closed in 1974. Here is Shirley Muldowney sitting on Double Trouble, owned by Jack Muldowney from Schenectady, New York. The 1969 dragster by Don Long was powered by twin supercharged gas Chevrolets with direct drive. In 1970 it ran a 750 at 200 miles per hour. You don't see many Woody wagon drag cars. This 1948 Oldsmobile is owned by Jeff Courtai from Hollywood, California. It is powered by a supercharged Nitro 392 Chrysler Hemi with direct drive. In 1968 at Irwindale it ran a 1006 at 150 miles per hour. This car is really rare. This is June Cochran. She was a former Miss Indiana, a Playmate and longtime Hearst model. This 1940 Willys is owned by Junior Thompson from Norwalk, California. In 1961 at Lyons it ran 1090 at 128 miles per hour. The B-Line Dragway was built in 1963 by local entrepreneur Jim Rogers on land leased from the Salt River Pima Indian tribe, and it closed in 1975. This is the Byron Racing Products dragster owned by Byron Blair from San Diego, California. It raced at the Irwindale Memorial Day race in 1971. It ran 668 at the Irwindale Grand Prix. The car was one of 41 Top Fuel cars that attempted to qualify for the 16-car field on May 15 at Irwindale for the NHRA Division 7 race. His 683 qualified number 6. The days of NHRA getting 41 Top Fuel dragsters to show up for an event are long gone. No more putting bleach on the tires either. Here's a picture of Shirley Muldowney standing by her funny car. This is the Maloney Plymouth Flintstone Flyer owned by Dave Koffel and Gail Mortimer from Massillon, Ohio. The 1967 Plymouth Barracuda was powered by an injected Nitro 426 Chrysler Hemi with an automatic transmission. Here is Swamp Rat Windjammer owned by Don Garlitz from Tampa, Florida. The 1965 dragster was powered by a supercharged Nitro 426 Dodge with direct drive. In 1965 it ran a 750 at 219 miles per hour. Here is Pam Hardy, Jungle Jim Lieberman and Shirley Muldowney. Every time I see these old staging lane pictures with the Corvette sitting there, I'm thinking, if those guys would have only known what the prices are now, they never would have cut those cars up. This is the Little Old Winemaker owned by Eddie Pauling from Phoenix, Arizona. The 1966 Dodge Dart was powered by a supercharged 392 Chrysler Hemi with an automatic transmission. The Dart's Hemi was located behind the driver. It won the Unlimited Fuel Crown at the 67 AHRA Spring Nationals in Odessa, Texas, besting Al Vanderwood's Flying Dutchman Dart in the final round with 8.95 in the spring of 1967. Here are Hearst models Linda Vaughn and Jackie Hart. Jackie was the daughter of NHRA official Jack Hart. Sadly, I read Jackie lost her life as a passenger in a motorcycle accident in her 20s. Here is the Shark Corvette at Connecticut Dragway. It opened in 1960 and closed in 1985. This is Al Vanderwood's Flying Dutchman at Irwindale Raceway. The 1966 Dodge Dart was powered by a supercharged Nitro 392 Chrysler Hemi with a 3-speed manual transmission. In September of 1966 it ran a 855 at 176 miles per hour. I saw this picture of the girl in the pits on a mini bike and it reminded me of an old Honda Mini 50 I had. I sold it at a garage sale before I joined the military for $50. I have seen them sell in the $1,200 to $2,000 range today. The High and Mighty was built by a group of young Chrysler engineers from a 1949 Plymouth Business Coupe. While it was only ran for a short time, it probably has the most recognizable exhaust ever. This is Glenn Lazar from West Seneca at the Niagara Airport drag strip in New York. The Willys truck ran a 920 at 180 miles per hour with a blown gas Chevrolet. Here is the Sizzler owned by Joey Chidwood's Thrill Show from Tampa, Florida. The 1965 Chevrolet Chevelle was powered by a 850 horsepower H202 Turbonique drag axle with direct drive. On July 16, 1965 at Sunshine Drag Strip in Clearwater it ran 140 miles per hour. I had never seen this Ford van before, but it's got a mid-engine. You can see the headers coming out from underneath. I like that wild air scoop coming off the roof. If you know anything about this van, please comment below. This is Dixie Devil, owned by Joe Lunati from Memphis, Tennessee. The FX and XS class were really something. They were the funny cars before there were funny cars. The 1967 Chevrolet Camaro was powered by a supercharged Nitro 427 Chevrolet with an automatic transmission. In September 1967 at Indy it ran a 820 at 179 miles per hour. This is Scorpion 4, owned by Bobby Langley from Everman, Texas. The 1964 Dragster by Don Garlits was powered by a supercharged Nitro 392 Chrysler Hemi by Bobby Langley with direct drive. It ran a 754 at La Place, Louisiana in 1965. I'm not sure who this is or what's in that bucket, but if you know, please comment below. I'm sure tearing apart and working on an engine in a dirty parking lot was not easy. Here are some old roller starters. They eliminated the need of a push vehicle to start the cars. You have to love it when the governor is in support of a drag strip. Too bad the governor didn't step up and show support when it was being closed though. This is the Riviera Wagon Master, owned by Tom McCurry from Burbank, California. The 1961 Buick Riviera wagon by Kent Fuller was powered by 4 injected gas 454 Buick nailheads with direct drive. This was the old 4-engine 4-wheel drive showboat dragster with a hand-formed custom Buick Riviera station wagon body. There never was a Riviera wagon built by Buick. This is William Big Willie Robinson III. He was the founder and president of the National and International Brotherhood of Street Racers. Here is the Glutch and Tory Camaro, owned by Tom Glutch from Santa Monica, California. The Chevrolet Camaro by Woody Gilmore was powered by a supercharged Nitro 392 Chrysler Hemi with direct drive. This is Jim Lakey's Speed Shop car from Ohio. It is a 1963 Nash Metro B Comp dragster. Here is the Durfee Automotive car, owned by Jim Steele from El Monte, California. The 1931 Ford Model A Roadster was powered by a supercharged gas 371 Oldsmobile with a 4-speed manual transmission. If you look closely you will see 5 single belts on that blower. It ran a 1012 at 139 miles per hour at Pomona on March 27, 1960. This is E.J. Potter. He put a small block Chevy into a motorcycle frame. 7 motorcycles were constructed by Potter beginning in 1960. The first 3 were named Bloody Mary, while the last 4 were named Widowmaker. Attempts to rig a clutch assembly from a Harley-Davidson drum brake proved unsuccessful, so instead he built a direct chain drive. So up on a stand with the rear wheel spinning, he would take the engine to 6,000 RPM. Next, he'd rock the bike off the stand, and when the spinning wheel hit pavement, he held on smoking the tire the entire length of the drag strip. Rear tires would only last for 3 runs before having to be replaced. In 1970 at Bristol, Tennessee it ran a 956 at 166 miles per hour. This is the Inch Pincher 2 Volkswagen at Lyons Dragstrip. Here is Shirley Muldowney, back when smoking was still cool. Good luck today finding anyone in the NHRA letting a picture get out with a cigarette or beer in their hand. Everyone has to pretend to be politically correct these days. This is the Don Garlits Dart, owned by Don Garlits. It was a blown fuel, late 426 Hemi, direct drive dragster style funny car. The 200-inch chassis had a 18-foot long Dart Roadster body. Driver Emery Cook sat in the trunk, like a slingshot dragster. Some people call this having a bad day. Where I came from, we used to call it catastrophic failure. This is the McGuard wheel lock car, owned by Jim Zakia from Niagara Falls, New York. The 1972 Opel GT was powered by an injected gas 375 Chevrolet with a 4-speed manual transmission. On September 4, 1977 at Indianapolis it ran a 9:05 at 154 miles per hour. This is Bill Shrewsbury's LA Dart Wheelstander. His cars entertained thousands of fans over the years. He would sometimes stand up through the open windshield as he was driving the car, earning the nickname Wild Bill. Here is Super Goldenrod, owned by J.C. Sizemore from Athens, Alabama. The 1969 Chevrolet Nova by Don Hardy was powered by a supercharged Nitro 392 Chrysler Hemi with a 2-speed manual transmission. This dragster is owned by Eddie Hill from Lufkin, Texas. The 1958 Dragster by Eddie Hill was powered by an injected gas Pontiac engine by Eddie Hill with direct drive. The dragster weighed 1,075 pounds. In 1959 at Caddo Mills, Texas it ran a 9:25 at 161 miles per hour. The Texan was owned by Henry Garner from San Antonio, Texas. The 1960 Ford and 1927 Ford Model T rear engine altered by Henry Garner was powered by a supercharged Nitro Chrysler Hemi with direct drive. Here's Hearst model Linda Vaughn. She may be one of the most famous non-racers in drag racing history. This is Mental Cruelty, owned by Dave Bowman from Yorba Linda, California. The 1969 32 Austin Bantam Altered was powered by a supercharged Nitro 392 Chrysler Hemi by Dave Bowman with direct drive. On December 12, 1970 at Irwindale it ran a 7:39 at 184 miles per hour. Here is Mickey Thompson standing in the pits by his Hemi Pontiac powered dragster. Now, before everyone starts commenting about how Pontiac didn't make a Hemi, well, you would be right. But Mickey Thompson did, and for $1,000 you could buy a set of his heads to turn your Pontiac engine into a Hemi. This is Mr. Norm's Supercharger, owned by Norm Kraus. I always liked this funny car body because it had a lot of detail to it. With the bumper, headlights and grille, it was rare and not many people ever ran it. Here is Cyclone, owned by Walt Arfons from Akron, Ohio. The 1967 Mercury Comet was the world's first jet funny car. The J-46 Westinghouse jet, formerly powering the Vought F-7U Cutlass, a Navy jet fighter. In 1967 the car ran a 799 at 205 miles per hour. I realize Paul Newman was a SCCA driver along with being a great actor, but here he is in the pits on a Mickey Thompson dragster go-kart. They made 180 of them and sold new for $265. I saw one sold in 2018 on a high-end auction site that went for over $19,000. Here is Virginia Twister, owned by Kenny Warren from Arlington, Virginia. The 1966 Dodge Coronet was powered by an injected Nitro 426 Chrysler Hemi with a 3-speed manual transmission. It ran in the AXS class. Here's the Hearst Girls. All I can really say here is, the person who hired these three did an outstanding job. This is the Seitz Brothers Missouri Mule, owned by Jack Seitz, Doc Spence and Bob Manion from Kansas City, Missouri. The 1965 Plymouth Belvedere was powered by an injected Nitro 426 Chrysler Hemi with an automatic transmission. In 1965 it ran a 1098 at 125 miles per hour. This is Little John Lombardo, owned by John Lombardo from Van Nuys, California. The 1969 Chevrolet Corvette by Jim Kirby was powered by a supercharged Nitro 392 Chrysler Hemi by Jack Bayer with a 3-speed manual transmission. In May of 1969 at Orange County it ran a 787 at 182 miles per hour. Here is Precision Speed, owned by Dave and Karen Smith from Anaheim, California. The 1964 Chevrolet Corvair by Precision Speed and Marine was powered by an injected Chevrolet by Dave Smith with an automatic transmission. This is the Ringer & Saunders 8 the Hard Way dragster from Portland, Oregon. From what I read, Ringer was a Portland fireman and part-time head porter. They got the 8 cylinders from 2 Pontiac Tempest 389s. The block molds were modified at the factory, eliminating the left side cylinders to make a 4-cylinder engine. Here is the Melrose Missile owned by Cecil Yather from Oakland, California. The 1965 Plymouth Belvedere was powered by a 426 Chrysler Hemi with an automatic transmission. On September 4, 1966 at Aquasco, Maryland it ran a 924. This 1969 48 Fiat Topolino by R&B Automotive is owned by Joe Arrigo from Joliet, Illinois. It was powered by an injected gas 488 Chevrolet with a 2-speed manual transmission. I read the car usually ran on gas, but he did put in 50% nitro and ran a 813. In this video you saw people, cars, drag strips, some good things and some bad things. So I will close with this. Drag racing in the 60s, 70s and 80s had a vibe to it, an edginess, a pulse, not just on the racetrack but in the pits and in the stands. Sadly, today, somehow, a lot of it has been lost. Please comment below. As always, thanks for watching.